Hello friends. What I hear most about going barefoot is just don't do it. I mean, you're gonna shoot your eye out, kid. Seriously though, the usual reasons that are cited are that you're gonna puncture your foot or you're gonna get parasites from going barefoot. Well, I'm here today to tell you that going barefoot is awesome. And here to help me is the most extreme barefooter I know, my daughter, Liliana. These are healthy human feet. This is what they should look like and what they should be capable of. To really see these in action, let's go to one of Liliana's favorite climbing spots. Check out these feet. The toes are alive. The muscles, the tendons, the ligaments, they're strong and flexible. The sole is resilient. It's resistant to puncture, abrasion, and, importantly, pain. On her down climb, this was a little more technical, you can really see healthy feet in action. They're interacting with their environment. Now this interaction with the environment is essential. Imagine someone that wore mittens all the time. You'd probably think that was a little bit weird, right? My dexterity would be highly reduced. I wouldn't be able to feel or touch things. So the nerve sensations going from my fingers to my brain would become atrophied and just wither from disuse. My hands would grow weaker. The muscles, the ligaments, the tendons, they wouldn't get the same exercise because my hands just won't be interacting with the world on a normal basis. So isn't it interesting that this looks weird, but if someone's wearing heavy, thick shoes all the time, that's just normal. This is cultural conditioning at work, my friends. We look at one thing and think it's strange, another and think it's normal, just because of how things are done, not because it necessarily makes any sense. Shoes are actually much more restrictive than mittens. If you think about the average shoe, it's a hard shell, a casing, almost a cast that goes around the foot. Imagine what that does to the muscles, ligaments, and tendons in your feet. Any of us can regain the potency of our bare feet. This, of course, is the first thing to do, is to remove those shoes at least once in a while. Wow, my hands feel free. And your feet will feel free as well. Now, maybe not at first, because one of the more important things that happens when we cover our skin all the time is that it becomes hypersensitive. Just walking over sticks and ground, a pine cone maybe, extremely painful. And yet you can see how bare feet can be capable of running over sharp, thick gravel. Can you run across that?
This?
Yeah. When we take those shoes off, something magical starts to happen. Our feet, they start to come alive again. We're going to regain balance that was lost. We're going to regain a sense of interaction with the world that was lost. And we're going to free ourselves of the footwear support cycle. What is the footwear support cycle? This is when your feet are hurting. Maybe you've got some plantar fasciitis, and you go into the podiatrist and they're going to give you an insert. And that insert, what that does is that it further coddles your foot and prevents it from having to do what it does best, which is move and interact with the world. Pretty soon, you're not even comfortable with that insert and you have to get other inserts. And this becomes a cycle of more and more supportive shoes throughout your entire life until you break that cycle consciously. So what everybody wants to know is, doesn't that hurt?
Not really. But sometimes I just step on it slightly wrong. I guess more right here. I mean, if I get a sharp pointy rock right here.
That's the softest part of your foot?
Yeah, but otherwise, it hardly ever happens, so
Wow.
it doesn't really hurt.
What about those two big reasons not to wear shoes? Well, the first is that you're going to puncture your foot if you don't wear shoes. Now, I will admit, I have gotten a nail punctured deep into my foot. This happened to me once. I tend to be a pretty aware kind of guy, and so not the one to just blunder into something like that, but it did happen to me once. However, it happened when I was wearing shoes. Here's the reason why. Our bare feet have nerves on the bottom. If I'm going barefoot and I step down and I hit something sharp, what happens? Those nerves sense it. And immediately there's an automatic reaction where our weight will come off of that foot. And we will almost always avoid a bad puncture. With a shoe, comes down, it hits that, there's no sensation of pain. I press down, I commit my weight, and up it goes into the foot. That is how we get really, really nasty punctures. Now, if you're going barefoot, are you going to get small scrapes and punctures? Absolutely, especially as you become more advanced, because we start to move more freely and more quickly and more powerfully on our bare feet. And then, like any other part of your body that's interacting with the world, yes, you will get small injuries. I'm going to throw out a completely unscientific, just intuition that I have here. And that's that those small punctures can maybe be good for us. Our immune system, like any other physiological system in our body, it needs exercise. And when we're going barefoot and getting small scrapes and punctures, we are getting some exercise because, of course, we're going to get pathogens entering in through those breaks in our flesh. Have I or anyone else I know that's a barefooter ever gotten sick or really injured from going barefoot? It's almost like we become infection resistant. So there's this idea that in the old days, a tiny little scrape would kill us. I'm going to say that's not actually true in the days before antibiotics. It probably became true as we became more civilized, started covering up our feet all the time, and didn't give our immune system that exercise that it needs to be able to deal with the little scrapes and cuts and things that are a usual part of unsheltered life outdoors. May we take a look at the bottom of your feet once?
Sure.
Okay. They don't feel hard. I thought they'd feel as hard as rock because they're able to move with rock. But it's not about being hard like rock. It's about them being resilient, isn't it? Wow. Now, what about those parasites? You might want to skip to this minute if you are a little squeezy or get grossed out easily. Because yes, we can get parasites from going barefoot. Usually we're talking about hookworms, though there's other species, and these live in the soil and often in feces. So you step into that and these hookworms can burrow up into your skin. If you look online, you'll see some horror stories about people that have had these hookworms burrowing through their feet. Now, that sounds really, really gross, doesn't it? But think about this for a second. First of all, most of these infections occur in tropical places and often places where there's a lot of poop on the ground. So you've got cats, stray dogs, sometimes people pooping, and you're stepping in that, then maybe you do want to think a little bit about going barefoot in that environment. But what about the ones that just dwell in the soil? Well, here's the thing. Our feet can pick these up. Have I ever heard of someone personally that this has happened to? No. So it is low on the risk factor when we think about driving a car or we think about going and eating Big Macs. These are things that are dangerous in the short or long term. However, going and putting your feet on the ground, and it's not just your feet. Because if you want to protect yourself from these parasites in the soil, don't go barefoot. But also make sure that you don't sit on the ground. You don't want your flesh to touch the ground. Certainly don't put your hands on the ground as you might in gardening or some other activity like that, landscaping. We have to remember that there's nothing special about the flesh on the bottom of our feet as opposed to the flesh of our hands or our butt if you're worried about parasites. So if you really are concerned about this and you're, say, going to the tropics to sit on the beach, definitely wear some beach shoes. And I would also advise, instead of a bathing suit, maybe some pants, jeans, and you'll want to wear mittens or gloves because your hands, you don't want those to touch the sand. In fact, if we're worried about these kinds of parasites, there's other things we have to avoid besides just going barefoot, because we can get similar parasites from eating food, from having sex, I already said, sitting on the ground, even breathing. So these are things to just stay away from if you can. And a hazmat suit is a great answer to all of these things, because then your chances of getting parasites of any kind are reduced significantly. So if you haven't been scared off by the parasites and already placed your order for your hazmat suit, then I'd really encourage you to give barefoot a try if you haven't already. Anybody can do this. To get started, start inside, just on the soft carpet or whatever you have in your house. Take a month and just go barefoot as much as you can inside. You're going to start to reshape those ligaments, tendons, re-strengthen the muscles. Then start walking outside on a soft terrain, something like grass. Just the little undulations in a lawn are going to give your foot a better exercise, and it's going to start to condition your soul and give it a little bit of resilience. From there, just move up into more and more challenging terrain. Take it slow, take baby steps, and let your feet grow with you along the way. You can get up to the point where, like Liliana, you can sprint across the gravel and it's not going to hurt. Any advice for people wanting to get started on barefooting?
Get calluses.
Get calluses. How do you do that?
I guess you gotta go barefoot a lot.
Nice. Share your barefoot stories in the comments. Are you a long-time barefooter? Are you new to it? Are you going to give it a try because you were inspired by this video? I'd love to hear what you have to say. Love to you all. Talk with you in the comments.